Dear panel, site proposition tells you that social media sites have the right to curate because issues like confirmation bias and toxic discussions exist, and curating helps mitigate that. So I would like to greet everyone here today and start this debate by defining the notion. So we define social media sites as sites that enable people to share content and participate in social networking, such as Twitter, Facebook, etc. And curate news stories that trend, meaning they can filter and choose whatever is being showcased in their respective trending sections. So what is the problem that site proposition is going to fix? Site proposition tells you three things here. Firstly, confirmation bias exists. By not curating, this will remain. Secondly, there are also harmful/divisive news, which is example for that are punishing Muslim Day, where discussions is toxic and is popular, therefore more people are prone to this. And thirdly, we're fine with freedom of speech, but we're not fine with this popularizing these sorts of news as it harms the users and leads to things such as A, echo chambers, and secondly, hate speech. So it is important for us here to note that users are invested in these sites and use them for the majority of the day. Also, the majority of these users are uninformed young individuals, and social media has the power to form and shape future communities. It's also important to note here that this debate isn't about social media sites removing content, but rather changing the course of what is being showcased in their trending sections. So what is the status? What is the status quo? Site opposition want this, and what social media sites are using at the moment. We tell you that firstly, they use algorithms to show what is popular and recent, and secondly, they use algorithms that shows the majority, that majorly shows the preferences / interactions / history of said user, and so this leads to unconsciously increasing confirmation bias and reinforcing echo chambers. So for our stance, we tell you that curation is in the best interest of these sites and its community. So what we want to achieve out of this debate is that curation is necessary and justified. Site opposition has the burden to prove why it's otherwise, and we will be proving this burden throughout 3 lines of analysis. Firstly, I will be taking the first two, which are the role of social media, and secondly, social media sites have the right to curate because it directly affects them. And our second speaker will be taking the last argument, which is how curating mitigates echo chambers. So moving on to my arguments. So what is the role of social media? So in comparison to regular media where you only have one-way communication, we tell you that in social, So we tell you in social media, on the other hand, there's a two-way communication that essentially gives you the ability to communicate as well. Site proposition also tells you that it's extremely influential in terms of hurting someone or to the extent of changing the course of politics where hundreds of millions of people can be affected by this. So 2 things can happen in the status quo. Firstly, the toxicity of certain discussions. An example for that are A, punishing Muslim Day, and B, the blockade on Qatar. We tell you that in both cases, discussions was the most popular and recent, and it was extremely divisive. And so punishing Muslims is not fair, but it's also not fair when there are people that are agreeing to this and are actively promoting hate speech on social media. Also, on the blockade, we tell you that uninformed citizens of blockading countries have reached the extent of calling Qatari citizens as proponents of terrorism, or even the extent of calling us terrorists. So, site proposition tells you that this sort of futile and toxic discussion shouldn't be trending. By letting these social media sites intervene and curate, this can be avoided. Secondly, which is how social media sites can shape the course of politics. Like a great example for that could be the 2016 US elections. So it is important for us here to note that A, Donald Trump was extremely ridiculed by the people, therefore putting him in the spotlight. B, Trump had more capital as a Republican, which made him use bots that would essentially popularize him in social media by A, searching for him, B, publish Trump-supporting articles where cherry picking was obviously evident, though it doesn't matter because confirmation bias, that side opposition still will exist. So, but regardless, since him being in the spotlight, we tell you that turned out to his favor and made him the president, as misogynistic and racist white people with capital are knowing more and more about this individual because of how popular he has become. And so we tell you by curation, you have the power to level the playing field between Republican capital and Democrats and make it more fair, if you will. So in conclusion, site proposition tells you that these sites has a right to curate, and we tell you that toxic discussions would have been mitigated as we're not showcasing them, and maybe Trump would have not been president. But regardless of who is better between him or Hillary, we tell you that the elections would have been more fair. So now I'd like to move on to my second argument, which is they have a right, because it directly affects them. So we tell you that in a social platform such as Twitter, they should have a right to curate the news on their respective trending sections. So the question in this debate is why? We tell you, site proposition tells you that these sites are directly affected by how people perceive their site. And one of the prominent ways to do so is to check out the trending section of these respective sites. So site proposition also tells you that these sites can control this sort of perception by the people, which would ultimately hurt them by curating, hurt them if they hadn't curated their trending sections. So now that we've established that, let's start off by contextualizing and showing how they can be harmed and why they have a right to counter that by curating. So firstly, we tell you that in these sites, users may popularize things that would ultimately ruin the reputation of said social media site, including things such as terrorist propaganda, including things such as hate speech, graphic content, and also, though it may be hard, false information. We tell you all of this can be avoided if they had the right to curate and sort of choose what they want to be showcased in their trending section. So now, let's show you why they should follow such a line of action. Not at this point, sir. We tell you that since curation, A, directly affects these sites, whether it's harmful or beneficial, B, they control and own the site itself, and C, these sites try to maintain an image to attract more users and broaden the social sphere. And we tell you that they have a hard time doing so if they can't curate. So how does it affect them? We tell you that once they curate, this will be helping or hurting them, either having more users or more users coming in or leaving, having more or less investors. And since such site is not the only one out there, we feel that there's a sort of a competition between these sites. Which one can put more quality content, like who is better at curating and creating, and therefore gain as much users as possible. Essentially, we conclude that the outcome of any policy that these sites implement will ultimately affect them as a company. So site opposition has the burden to come here and prove to us why their fates, why these companies' fates shouldn't be in their own hands. So site opposition might come here and tell us that in some cases, why shouldn't we remove content completely? We tell you that some discussions come from a gray area, and it might seem offensive, but it's not inherent. And we tell you that there might be some room of discussion. We just don't want to popularize these sorts of toxic news, therefore broadening the harm. But in cases where everyone agrees that it's wrong, such as killing people and child abuse, we tell you that it can be removed by the people with the flag/report option. And so site opposition has the burden to prove otherwise. And so for these reasons, site opposition is completely proud to propose. Thank you.
Well, howdy everybody. I'm the first speaker of the opposition team. Firstly, I want greeting the judge and our respected audience and the proposition team here and my team. Well, today we're discussing a very crucial matter which actually recently became internationally debatable, which is the House believes that social media sites like Twitter have the right to curate the news stories that trend on their platform, which means that social media sites have the right to select and filter the news which shown in the platform which share which spread. Well, firstly, I will start with the first speaker of the proposition team, which firstly said that will spread the biased information. The social media site will preventing spreading the biased information. But actually, how do you know that it will prevent that neutrally? You don't know which site is this social media site. Well, the second thing that helping people to determine their site. Well, determine the site with any origins, the origins of or the opinions of the social media sites. It's actually determining to the site of the social media, not determining the site themselves. Well, the third thing that will ban hate speech. But don't you know that the hate speech of Trump has dramatically spread because of social media? Well, let's firstly, as an opposition team, let's present our strategy. Firstly, I told you 2 arguments, and the second speaker will add 2, and third will add 1, and will defense. Firstly, my first argument is that social media sites want to increase their financial interests in the expense of the rights of the humans. How can that? We all know that social media sites use many strategies to, to increase their financial interests. But that's ordinary. But not harming the rights of the people. That's the point. Social media do increase their financial interests by harming the rights of the human. How comes that? Firstly, it's using the echo chamber strategy, which is actually giving just the user its opinion, regardless of the other opinion. And that's actually extremely harmful. For example, in USA, when Trump and the people just searching about Trump, and Facebook, Twitter just give them the information to support Trump. Let's give the grave consequences of this echo chamber. Firstly, it will make a split in society because there's people believe in one thing and just see this opinion and not seeing the other, and that will cause splits and conflicts in the society. And actually it will lead us to cultural and intellectual tribalism and also intolerance of opinion. Well, secondly, it determines the fate of the nation. For example, in USA, when people when just receive information and supporting Trump, that makes Trump won the election. Well, the second point is that, well,
don't you think that when Trump won the election is because they actually did not curate? Don't you think that when Trump won the election, they actually did not curate?
Well, actually, I think you didn't understand that because the election made while curation, while the election. So he did one because of that social media just keeping sending information to praise Trump. Well, moving on to my second argument, which is that social media sites are totally biased religiously. Well, actually, as one of the most trustable source of information, social media should be biased between all the religion and not be biased against one of them. For example, the obvious prejudice against Islam by social media sites. But how can that? Firstly, spreading, as I said, the hate speech of Trump. And that actually made a huge persecution against Muslims in USA and in the whole world. Secondly, distorting distorting the image of Islam by showing ISIS as a Muslim symbol that actually will cause violence against Islam. Let's give the consequences of that. The consequences of that are extremely serious. Firstly, it will increase the persecution against Muslims. Consequently, it will increase the violence against Muslims. Accordingly, it will lead us to sectarian strikes. As a result, it will cause civil wars and will demolish the whole country. Well, at the law in the USA Constitution that said the law of every country prohibits all the advocacy of racial and religious hatred. So, social media are participating in this crime by spreading the hatred. For example, let's say the hate speech of Trump. Well, and in conclusion, social media became our trustable source of information and became the place where the people express their opinion. So how can we hand over this information and how can we hand over the fate of this nation in the hand of people who actually want just or caring just about his interests in the expense of the human rights, and actually wants to make strife and a conflict. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, if you want a world free from splits and conflicts and sectarian strifes, just say no for giving the right to social media to curate news. Thank you.
What Team Proposition is trying to do is that we're trying to make social media a better place. It's a news distribution. It's a better way to educate people because we use social media on a daily basis, and that's what we're trying to do, and that's what we're trying to prove to you guys, okay? I'm the second speaker, and I'm trying to get you guys back in topic since they drifted out topic talking about social media is bad. We get that the social media is bad, but the only thing that we're focusing on is should we curate this like Twitter or Tumblr or all these sites, okay? We really agree with you that social media is bad. When it comes to social media, there are advantages and disadvantages. But should we curate it? Should we let Twitter put ads or anything distributing news? So that's what the topic and that's what the motion is trying to say. So I hope the second speaker to come up here to make it more obvious, okay? So going to the reputation, which is, Trump's tweets were viral because they did not curate. We really know that Trump used his popularity, to win the presidential, election. We really believe that because of the social media and because of his popularity, that's how he won. No, thank you. And that's why we believe that Trump should have, if we created back then obviously we would have had like ads and all those kind of stuff showing both sides of the story. And I'll be going on details further on in my argument. So we are not harming your rights. You talk about freedom of right. You guys are saying that we're taking your rights. We're actually not taking your rights. We're not forcing you not to put anything in Twitter or any tweets or anything. No, thank you. But the only thing that we're trying to do is that we want to curate, we want these companies to put out things to show both sides of the story. You can do whatever you want. We're not taking your right. We're actually giving your right. We're actually saying, no, thank you. And that's it. Okay, so this will cause conflict and space. Okay. The first speaker came up here and said it's going to cause wars. That's basically what I think that the side of the debate is saying, is that they're actually not causing any war and any conflict whatsoever. It's because if you look at the GCC problems and what's going on, is that because of the social media and what's going on inside social media. If there was no, thank you. If there was like a official account that says what's going on, then obviously we would not have this conflict in the GCC country in the first place. Because that's the thing that we're trying to prove to you guys, is that without us, curating and letting Twitter to put all the sides of the story, then obviously people are, gonna write their own side of the story. Moving on to the, third argument that they gave us all these They gave us all these examples about wars and all those kind of stuff, and we really believe that all these wars and all these conflicts happened because Twitter did not put these kind of stuff. And I'm not only talking about Twitter, other social media such as Tumblr and etc. Okay? Now going to my arguments, which are, hold on. So my first argument is that how curate, I'll take you in a second. How curation medication is echo chamber. People search for something that they support their views. That if they want to search for something, if there's like a war coming up, obviously people are gonna, Google something or like search something that is supporting my view. I'm not going to search something for something that I don't disagree with. Obviously, I'm going to find information about something that I actually agree with. And I'll take your view. I'm quick.
You said that it doesn't take you right. But how, with the right of every human to listen to all the opinions, the political...
Okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. You can just press skip, that's it, in Twitter. Every ad came up and popped up, and you can just press skip. If you don't want to read it, then you don't have to read it. That's simple. People are interested. Not everyone is interested in ads. No, thank you, I just answered your guys. Anyways, so, how curation meditation is equal chamber. People searching for something that they support and their views, and how can we fix it? Is by curating. So, for example, people are go surfing in web to find the conflict or to extend their information on their side. And how can we fix this? Because most people are not debaters. They don't read both sides of the story. Obviously, they're going to search for something that they're searching for. So obviously, how can we fix this? How can we let, an individual to know both parties of like what's going on, like the advantage and the disadvantage, is by curating and showing and list down all the things, the information that they need to know, and that's simple. And this side of the debate is trying to, disagree with this kind of idea. Obviously, we really believe that by curating, we're going to make a better place because we're going to let people understand what's going on inside our society. We're going to acknowledge people, because most of the people, most of our children, most of the teenagers, and every individual, they use social media on a daily basis. And instead of like seeing these trends about, Kim Kardashian's rear end or any stuff like that, we can actually educate them of, wars and what's going on and telling people what's going on inside our daily basis instead of no thank you. So, we are not making this complicated. We really believe that this side of the debate is, our side of the debate is actually making this, simple and clear. It's okay, we're not making this complicated. The only thing we want to do is that we just want to curate and show people that, guess what, here, that's the information that you need. If you don't want to read this, sir, you don't have to read it. We're not going to force you to read it. You just can't, you can just press skip. You don't have to read it, okay? So we have lack of attention when it comes to, these types of wars. We have lack of attention when it comes to, these types of things that are going inside. We should have these ads so we can have more attention and forget about all the unnecessary stuff, of what's going on inside social media. We really believe that we can make this world a better place by just engaging people and letting people, getting to know what's going on in our daily society by curating and putting, these kind of ads or any type of things to show people that they should actually pay attention to what's going on. It's out of order, sir. Okay, so people are not informed. Most people are not informed what's going on inside our society. Why? Because they're not engaging. Because they don't know what's going on inside the trends. Because their trends, the only thing that is on their timeline is memes and all those unnecessary stuff. They're not informed. By putting these ads on top of, we're obviously going to inform them that, hey, guess what? We have this that is going on today. So we really believe that they're going to be informed and are going to be known and they're going to be, warned of what's going on inside our society. And on a daily basis, we check Twitter for something that is so unnecessary. And how can we fix that? It's by curating, and that's it. How can we make this so complicated? And this side of the debate is saying we're actually not making this complicated when we're making this simple. We really believe that this side of the debate should actually really should win this debate because we actually listed that down all of their examples, refuted everything that we're presenting. We really believe that this world can be a better place to live if we can just curate. That's it. Thank you guys.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are here to speak about a very important thing, which was explained by the first speaker of the proposition. My role as the second speaker is first refute the second speaker and the first speaker of the proposition team, support my first speaker's arguments, and of course give the arguments of my friends. I'll start by refuting the first two speakers. The first speaker said that Trump did not win by curation. But does the first speaker know that more than 18 million of Facebook users' information have been leaked to a British company called Analytic, which supported Trump during their election? So basically, Trump wouldn't have won without curation. The second thing is that the first speaker said that social media do not care about hate speeches or people attacking Muslims. They only care about their financial support and if they are going to make money out of this or not. But does the second speaker know what curation means? Because since you agree that social media is bad, do you think that curation would make it any better? Plus, if they actually make curation on social media, they will not show us the full story as you claim, because they will only give you the side you want to see. They will only make you hear what you want to hear, to keep you on your side. The problem of all is not because of social media. The problem of the GCC is not because of the social media, and we know that it's not because of the social media. Social media did not even have a part of it until the problem actually happened. Plus, the curation would not allow us to see what the CEOs of these social medias want us to see. Then I'll start with my arguments. One thing that I was sure that the proposition team was going to talk about is terrorism, and that this curation system will tackle terrorism. But when you are in an echo chamber, only hearing what you want to hear, only think that your opinion is right, this would lead eventually to extremism, which eventually leads to terrorism. So instead of having 2 or 3 terrorist organizations, we're going to have 5 or 6 terrorist organizations. Thank you. Which is something that I'm pretty sure that the proposition team does not want. My second argument is that according to Article 18 of the International Convention of Human Rights, everyone has the freedom of choice. Everyone has the freedom to see and know what they want. So when we allow people, but when a group of people allow us to hear and listen what they want to hear, where's our freedom? Since millions of people died for this freedom, we're not going to give it up that easily. My third argument is that social media companies are irresponsible and make mistakes. As Mark Zuckerberg described, when more than 80 million of Facebook users had their information leaked. So, but Mark Zuckerberg said he was sorry, which I think is enough. Saying sorry for more than 18 million of people having their information leaked to a British company. Which proves my point that social media are irresponsible and do not deserve for us to keep our private information with them. My fourth and last argument is the proposition team said that they have the right. They have the freedom to choose whatever they want to show us on their trends. But there's a famous saying that says your freedom ends when mine starts. And when more than 60% of Americans get their news from social media, and when more than 88% of Americans take their news from social media, I think that that's where their freedom ends and ours starts. My first speaker had also a say about the religious effect that social media have and how social media sometimes attack one side and also attack the other side, but they only do this to keep us on their side, to keep us on our side. If you go on social media and hear things that you don't want to hear, I don't think that you will continue going on that side. You will go to a side that proves your point and supports your opinion. Thank you.
Respected judges, team proposition and team opposition. Our lovely audience, I'm the third speaker of the proposition team in this debate, which states that this House believes that social media sites like Twitter have the right to curate the news stories that trend on their platforms. And first, I would like to, as the third speaker, to refute and rebuttal everything that the opposition team has stated, which is actually in our favor, as I will clarify in my speech and summarize and rebuild our arguments, which were not actually taken down by the opposition team in the first place. Also, when it comes to that rebuttaling, they said that their argument is echo chambers. These echo chambers happen because of what? Because there is no curation in the first place. Because the fact that when you just have the information that you want to see, as you stated, as your second speaker stated, you just want to see this information. But is this information the whole image? Is this information the full picture? Is this information what is going to make you enlightened and see what's happening in this world? If you care about pets and cats or whatever, will that make you vote for Trump or Hillary? That's why we're saying that we should curate, because we want what's important, what is right for you guys to see on your trendings. And they also said that it only gives information, that Twitter only gave information about Trump. Twitter only gave information about Trump because Trump has this popularity. If Twitter actually curated this information and gave the other side a chance to actually for the people to see the other side, this wouldn't have happened. Why? Because the curation that we're fighting for gives you the full image and takes you out of the echo chambers that you guys are putting people into. And they also said that social media sites are totally biased, and all of these bad things about ISIS and terrorism and these killings and these videos, these hideous killings and these videos, why are they out there on the trending? Because trendings are not being curated in the first place. Your problem is not being cured We're here to cure the problem that you guys are stating. Us as proposition, we're fighting for a better feed, better news stories, better information. Taking out all of the bad things and bad stuff you guys said about news and social media in the first place. And they also said that there's going to be division between the community because of these echo chambers. And I say again, echo chambers happen because there is no curation. People become in a bubble of information that they are only into. People are only inside this bubble of information that you guys just want to see. But that's what you want to see is what you need to see. The opposition team needs to differentiate between what you want and what you need. What you need is the full image. What you want, you will have it, but you also need to see the full image.
And they also said that they also said that, as the second speaker said, that 18 million followers, users from Facebook information was leaked. I would like to clarify that this leak would have happened whether you curate or you don't. So this does not correlate to our motion in the first place. The leakage of this information does not have anything to do with curation that we're talking about news stories that trend. And they also said that everyone has the freedom to see what they want. Yes, everyone has the freedom to see what they want. But when you put such things in the trendings, it affects other people. You need to differentiate. You need to differentiate between the search bar and the trendings. The search bar is what you want to see. The trending is what everyone sees. And what everyone sees has to be curated in order for them to have the best information and the best news. What's your POI?
Well, firstly, I doubt really that you understand the motion, because actually the curation is happening right now. While they say that the echo chamber is because the curation is not existing.
Curation does exist, but what we're fighting for here is the fact that we need to curate stuff that are bad, and the fact that curation does not exist. You need to fix your information, otherwise we would not be debating this motion in the first place.
And they also said that, they had a POI, the fact that
they don't want that people, that these sites show what they just want, what they want to show. But no, I'll tell you why these sites have to show the full image. Twitter has more than 150 million users. These 150 million users have different points of view. These points of view, the social media site has to give them the news and the story that relate to them. And also this proves that they cannot be biased and they will not lead to this what you call bias or what you call corruption inside the social media itself. And when I go to my summarization and rebuilding our argument about the role of social media and how it affects people and what we should create it was not attacked by the opposition team. And they also said, we also said that we want to provide more quality content, while they just want to provide more content that you like to see. But we're fighting for quality, we're fighting for seeing the full image, we're fighting for everyone to have the full image that you need to see in order to make a decision, as they were trying to manipulate the election as saying that Trump used this as, Trump used the website. Why? Because it was not curated. If it was curated, people would see the full image and know who to vote for, not just have this the trendings as Trump and just Trump and Hillary is bad. But no, when you have such things as elections that happen in this world, that social media has such a powerful effect on it, you should see the full image. Because what we're fighting for here is the fact that people should not just see what they want, they should see what they need to know and the information that they need to know. And as we here as proposition, fully agree with this motion that says that this house should have, that social media should have the right to curate, as we have justified in our arguments, and we actually took down the opposition stance as well. And thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am the third speaker of opposition team. First of all, I'm going to refute the proposition team, and the second thing, I'm going to support my team. And the third thing, I'm gonna add my point. So before I get started, so the first speaker of them, the first speaker I'm going to speak right now. So echo champion happened when you only hear what you want to hear, which occupied curation. And also the second thing that they have said, that curation does not accept. So I think you need to update your information. And the three thing that don't you think that it would be okay for children to see words as the second speaker say, and curation makes you see make you see what you want to see to keep your own on the side. So Trump, when using curation, Trump wouldn't have one no thank you. Social media do not care about the hate speech of people attacking them only. And the first speaker of us have saying that social media sites want to introduce their franchise and increase in the expense of the human right. And the second thing, by eco champion, by giving the people just the point, like rise of the other point, that will cause that, for example, that will cause conflicts in the economy and the community and society, and also that will make culture tribalism. And the second thing of the speaker I've told us that social media, no thank you. Social media are completely biased against Islam. The second thing, that the hate speech of Trump, which caused a lot of persecution against Muslims in USA and the world, then that would cause strife and splits in the community, and that will lead the civil war. And so my point is social media, the social media sites introduce homosexuality. For example, Facebook celebrated the American decision of accepting homosexuality by by posting on all users saying Facebook celebrate the American design of homosexuality. Well, this makes sense. We are no religion except no thank you. No religions in the world accepting the homosexuality. So how the social media accepting Twitter, Facebook, and accepting that homosexuality, and all the religions in the world does not accepting the homosexuality. And for also no thank you. And also the second speaker said we don't want the children see, for example, what he said about Kim Kardashian, he take out of what he was talking about. He's just talking about famous people, so it does not make any sense. And the second, and the third, no thank you. The third, we can see the first speaker talking about Trump win by using coalition. Trump would not have won there and no direction. And also, so mean do not care about the hate speech of or people attacking them. The only no thank you, curing about keeping you on the side, and also about talking and that. So let's start with that. So you want the children, no thank you. You want to see you want the world cannot see everything by two eyes. You just want to make the social media let us see what they want. We have our voice, and everyone has his voice. So this will make the freedom of us. So how we could make the social media? No thank you. No thank you. So how do you want us not talking and just let the social media doing their thing? And also about talking the ads, you can just make a skip. For example, of the children that using their mobile phones, and there's like advertisement, and just it's bad for the children. So I cannot do anything because the ad is showing my children or showing our children or people that some bad ads. So this one how could help us? No, thank you. And also the second thing that we can see that my first speaker and the second speaker have told us everything strong that will make their team save point. And also I'm talking. The second speaker of them have telling us that bad answer, and that makes us no thank you. So my point is social media site. I'm gonna say it again to let you remember that social media sites. Economic homosexuality, for example, Facebook celebrated in the internet by saying American design of accepting the homosexuality. We can say it again that no one of us, no one in the religions that accepting the homosexuality. So how we can how we can see our children and our families see that the homosexuality is right, and that's I think all my point. And we can see that freedom just came from us, not for letting the social media say there's point and without seeing all the point. So thank you everyone. Thank you ladies and gentlemen. And that's it.
Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the reply speech of the opposition team. And I'll sum up what happened during that debate and why should our team win. I'll start by summing up our arguments. We said that the curation system would not tackle terrorism. It would instead make people more extremist, which would eventually lead to terrorism. Instead of having 2 or 3 terrorist organizations, we would have 5 or 6. Our second argument was that according to the Article 18 of the International Convention, every mankind has the right and the freedom of choice. So we have to get to choose whatever we want to see. Our third argument was that social media companies are irresponsible and sometimes make mistakes, which is why we should not trust them for choosing us what we want to see. And my fourth argument was that they do not have the freedom to choose what we want to see, even if it's their companies, because 60% of Americans get their news from social media, and more than 88% of humans get their information from social media, their news from social media. The third speaker, as I remember, said that my argument about Facebook and the 80 million Facebook users that have their information leaked does not have anything connected to our topic, but these 80 million Facebook users had their information leaked to support Trump, and this is a type of curation which allows things to be shown on your account to support that kind of person. We also said that the curation system spread biased information because they allow you to see what you want to see, to keep you on their side, because all they want to achieve is just money. They only care about money. We also argued that the curation and the social media companies do not care about hatred speeches or people attacking Christians or Muslims. They only care about their financial benefits. We also said that it's not good for children to see wars since they are at a very little age. They're not allowed. They shouldn't be allowed to see such things. We also argued about the echo chamber thing and how curation actually makes you in an echo chamber. Because they allow you to see the only thing that you want to see. They do not allow you to see the other opinion, which makes you think that the other person's opinion is inferior, which will link to being an extremism and terrorism. The third speaker, I believe, said that there is no curation. which my first speaker said that he has validated his information because curation is happening right now. And I think the first speaker said that Trump did not win by curation. He actually won by curation by allowing us to see and allow the semi-supporters of Trump from being sure that this guy is good and this guy should be, that we should vote for him. So I also think that this debate is over and we deserve to win. Thank you.
Dear panel, I'm the first speaker of side proposition, and I'm here to present our reply speech. So, what we have from side opposition is vague and absurd information, basically smoke and mirrors. So what we want to do here is just take a step backwards and just analyze what has happened throughout this debate. So I came up here and told you the definition of curation, and they didn't quite understand what curation meant. They're telling us that curation happens in the status quo, but we tell you that the status quo, two things happen. Firstly, they show you what you agree with, which is echo chambers, and that's what they're telling us that is bad. But we tell you this happens in the status quo. This happens because their curation is not evident. And secondly, we tell you the second type of algorithm is that would show you what is popular and what's most recent. And so, in that case, you would see things that you would see things that are toxic. There are toxic discussions in the current status quo. And so, side proposition helps mitigate that. So, what we have from the first speaker of side opposition is that we're just taking away the people's right. They have told us that they have a freedom of choice. Fine, they can put on whatever they want. We're not taking away their freedom of choice, but rather we just want these sites to showcase whatever they see fit as it harms them, as it directly affects these sites and not the users. They have your right to do so. We're not taking away these people's right because they can still put in what they want. They can still search for what they want, but we just don't want these sites to put things that they don't necessarily agree with. Secondly, they have told us that we are promoting echo chambers, but rather that, as I explained now, that is what is happening in the status quo, and we help mitigate that. Then they have also told us that this example about ISIS and how social media is against Islam for some reason. We tell you this happens because that's what the people are searching for, and that's what's happening in the status quo. We tell you we mitigate that as these sites would rather have a less toxic discussion where more users will be leaving these sites because they are apparently hurt by what they have heard from other people. We tell you this will be mitigated, this will be less if we apply curation because apparently it's in their best interest to have as much users as possible, and so they don't want to hurt these users by letting these toxic discussions go viral on these sites. And so that's what we explained in our speech. Then their second speaker came here and told us that Trump became president because of curation. We tell you that he did not become president because of curation, because quite frankly, he became president because he had capital and had used bots. These bots would popularize him and put stories that sort of show his best side, and that is we have also told you that cherry picking was evident, but it doesn't matter as these people would agree whatever they see because they just like that person, and that is the definition of confirmation bias, and we have explained that this will still happen if we don't apply curation. Then they have told us that it's the people right. Then again, we're not removing the right. We just don't want these sites to showcase whatever they don't see fit. Then they have told us that they do this because they want money, and again, yes, they do want money, and we tell you that it is in their best interest. Like we've explained why it is in their best interest to not show things that are toxic, that would hurt the people, that would make them leave the site. Then they've told us this example about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. We tell you this does not correlate to curation. We tell you this sort of corruption would have happened either way, and curation doesn't necessarily correlate to that sort of corruption. That could have happened anyway. We tell you that what we want is to curate news stories that would have less toxic discussions, that would mitigate confirmation bias. Then their third speaker still defended echo chambers, just doesn't make sense anymore. Then they have told us that kids would watch wars, and that is harmful because of curation. Firstly, in our side, we have told you that there won't be any toxic and divisive news stories. Secondly, we asked them, to what extent do you think that these kids wouldn't see Kim K's rear end if we hadn't applied curation? So then they have given us this weird point about homosexuality. This is not a debate, this is off topic, but we still tell you that regardless of where these sites are being, we tell you that they are the ones that are going to be affected by that thing. So regardless of where they've been, they have a right to do so because in the end, they're the ones that are being affected. So they have not answered my question from my first speech, and that is, to what extent do you think that these sites, like, why don't they have the right? Why don't they have the right to choose and like see why wouldn't they be harmed by it or be benefited with it? And so for these reasons, the site opposition is completely proud. Proposition is completely proud to propose. Thank you.